Hey, this week we're talking about the second of Jesus' I am statements, that I am the light of the world, and that's found in John chapter 8. And we talked about the context of that saying is in the Feast of Tabernacles. And as we continue to look at that, we close that out today. We've looked at Jesus making that statement and the Pharisees' challenge, or religious leaders' challenge of his statement, and how he responds to that, because there's always going to be those who respond in a negative way to that statement, that he is the Messiah, the Son of God. He is the one that is prophesied. He's the one that is to bring the new Exodus, the new creation. And so they said, you can't say that, you're testifying about yourself. He tells them, I can too, because I know where I came from, and you don't. And you judge by the flesh, you judge by appearance, and that's the only way you can judge. And he tells them why that's the only way they can judge here today. In verse 19, they were saying to him, where is your Father? Remember, Jesus said that his Father bore witness to him as well. And so what they're saying is, okay, if you're going to bring your Father into this, where's your Father? If you're calling him as a witness, where is he? And Jesus says to them, you know neither me nor my Father. If you knew me, you would know my Father also. These words he spoke in the treasuries, he taught in the temple, and no one seized him because his hour had not yet come. Two things I want to say about this, and this is necessarily brief. Two things I want to say about it as we close out this God's Nightlight is the title of the sermon for Sunday. And I'm not being crass. It is God's light, security that comes from knowing Jesus Christ in the midst of the darkness is cast out. And so as we close this out, Jesus is saying something very profound, is that if you had known the Father, you would know me, and vice versa. If you know me, you know the Father, because Jesus came to reveal the Father. I thought Jesus came to save people. He came to do both. He came to rescue God's creation, and in doing so reveal who the Father is. And that's what the I am statements are about. The I am statements reveal not only Jesus, but the nature and character of God the Father. So that if you know Jesus, you know the Father. And likewise, if you know the Father, then you will recognize Jesus. And that's what he's saying to these hard-hearted, judging by human standards people. They illustrate that they don't know God because they are judging by a human standard rather than a godly standard, and they will not receive Jesus' testimony about who he is. This declaration that he is the Messiah, that he is the one. They're celebrating the festival there of Tabernacles, which celebrates and anticipates the return of God's presence revealed by his glory, his radiant glory, his presence. And Jesus is saying, I am that light. I'm here. When your expectation is fulfilled, your longing is fulfilled. The glory has returned to the temple. Significant. This is taking place in the temple. So the same thing I want you to say, if you're going to know, the Father has to draw you to be sure. And let's understand, for them, before the cross, before the resurrection and ascension, before that, if they are going to know Jesus, then they have to have received the Word of God, but they have rejected that. Jesus says, you don't know the Word of the Father, and you don't know the Father. He says that in chapter 5. And so when you come to this chapter, in chapter 8, you already have that knowledge that they have rejected the Father, so they cannot, they don't receive the Word of God. They claim to, but they don't. If they had received the Word of God, if they had received Moses' testimony, as Jesus said, you would have recognized him as the Messiah. You would recognize me. You would know me. And you illustrate that you don't know the Father because you don't recognize who I am. And that's still true today. If you're going to know the Father, you've got to know Jesus. And the only way to know Jesus is to receive the testimony of the Father. And that is the Word of God. You must receive that. And the Spirit must convince you of that truth. And then in that moment you have this opportunity to say yes, to receive this wonderful gift of salvation, this wonderful gift of rescue, this wonderful gift of deliverance from darkness. And yes, you can be delivered from the darkness that's in this world right now. And I tell you, I have had it up to here with the darkness in our nation. This darkness that seems to have pervaded and invaded every aspect of our culture. And especially now with all of this fear and anxiety and division, whether it's race, whether it's virus, whatever it might be, has us at one another's throats. Have us not trusting anybody, not trusting our government, not trusting ourselves, not trusting local government, not trusting anybody. And in the midst of that, we need the light to shine. In the midst of that, we who are light bearers, because we are believers in Jesus Christ, need to be shining that light. Grace, mercy, love, justice, and especially truth. That needs to be known. People need hope. People need to know that God is in control. And I know that because, listen to this. The last verse, and this is the last thing I want to say. These words he spoke in the treasury. Where is that? Well, it was in the court of the women, we think. If you remember the story of the widow who put in the last 2 coins that she had, the widow's mite, you remember that? Well, in order for her to have access to the treasury, it had to be in the court of the women. Or it wouldn't be in the temple, because she couldn't go into the court of Israel, and she certainly couldn't go beyond that. Only the priest could go there. So it must be in the court of the women. There were 13 chests, and they were labeled as to what they were to be used for, and most of them were for voluntary offerings. And this is where Jesus is. He's teaching in the temple at the close of the Festival of Tabernacles, or Ingathering, and Sukkot. These words he spoke in the treasury as he taught in the temple, and no one seized him. And there's still this foment. There's still this want to arrest him, get rid of him. He's claiming to be the Messiah. He's claiming to be, in some cases, divine, which would have really upset people. We got to kill him for that, for sure. But I want you to hear this. His hour had not yet come. Okay, so who's in control of this? Well, God is. God is in control. God is sovereign. He was sovereign then. He's sovereign now. Who is over all of this that's taking place in our world right now? Who is over all of this that's happening in our nation right now? Well, God is. He's sovereign. Did he cause it? I don't know, but he certainly allowed it. I can't say that God caused all of this to go on, but he's certainly allowing it to go on. And I think the reason he's allowing it to go on to see if we will come to him. I keep hearing that image all day long. I've held out my arms to a stubborn and stiff-necked people, a rebellious and stiff-necked people. And Jesus over Jerusalem saying, I would have gathered you under my wings as a mother hen does her chicks, but you would not. He was willing, but they weren't willing. I wonder, are we as Christians willing to be on our knees, willing to be praying, willing to be fasting and praying, asking God to intervene in the midst of this? Will we return to God? Will we long for his presence? And will we as believers shine forth the light as light bearers as Christ lives in us? Will we do that? Well, I pray you will. Hey, listen, that's the end of this. That Jesus is the light who shines in the darkness, and darkness is dispelled. And that reveals truth, and truth rejects falsehood. And if you need that anchor in your life, if you feel like you're in the darkness, then come to the light, Jesus Christ. We're going to be celebrating that this Sunday at Troy First Baptist Church. And if you don't have a church home, I'd love for you to be my guest at Troy First Baptist. Our worship is at 9:30. Then we have small groups and Sunday school classes at 10:45. We haven't started other stuff up back yet, but we're going to very soon. And right now, that's our worship time. So if you want to be with us, be my guest this Sunday. I'd love to see you. Come introduce yourself. Leave me a comment. I'd love to meet with you. Love to talk to you. Don't forget, we do have our Troy First Baptist masks. If you need one, they're going to be there available in our lobby just outside the sanctuary. They're $3. $2 is break-even cost. We added $1 so we could give to missions. If you want one, we've got roughly 150. We're probably going to sell those out. If you want one, we'd love for you to have one. $3, and you can have that Sunday. So, or you can come by the church office and get it that way. Love to see you. Until then, if I don't see you Sunday, I'll see you Monday. God bless you.